When Rangers went bust in 2012, they had to start all over again in the 4th tier of Scottish football. Many of the current players opted to leave, meaning they had to bring in some new ones. And let's just say, it was a mixed bag. This is every player Rangers signed in that first transfer window. David Templeton, the only player Rangers actually spent money on their first transfer window, and people forget just how good David Templeton actually was. He broke through at Hearts, even scored that goal at Anfield against Liverpool in the Europa League, the biggest night of his career. But literally the next day, he swapped European nights for 3rd division football, signing for Rangers in 2012 for what was reported to be around 700,000. And it was a dream start. 2 goals on his debut in a 5-1 win at Elgin City, and 15 goals in his first season. But then came the injuries. Just 2 games into his Rangers career, he picked up ankle ligament damage at Annan, and that was the pattern. Every time he found form, he picked up another injury. By his final season, he barely played, and when his contract ran out in 2016, he was clubless. He later spoke about how those were some of his darkest days, stuck at home drinking, eating junk food, watching box sets, while his career slipped away. Templeton did battle back, with spells at Hamilton and Burton Albion, but injury never stopped haunting him, and he retired at just 32. Looking back, his career should have been so much better. He did actually come out of retirement in 2024 to play for Drumchapel, and now plays for Glasgow United. But unfortunately, he's just another case of a career hampered by injury. Ian Black. When Ian Black joined Rangers, his stock had never been higher, coming off the back of a fantastic performance in the Scottish Cup final as Hearts beat Hibs 5-1. So, on the face of it, dropping down to the 4th tier seemed like a weird move, especially when you consider the fact that before joining, Ian Black wasn't exactly best liked by Rangers fans, due to a fairly nasty tackle he made on Rangers star striker Nikita Jelavic. But what you have to remember is Rangers were still paying big money. In fact, reports say his deal was worth around 10 grand a week, and after the financial turmoil he had to endure at Hearts, the offer was too good to pass. Now, considering he was meant to be one of Rangers' marquee signings, his first season was pretty poor, but to be fair, there was a brief spell in his second season where he looked like a proper holding midfielder. Unfortunately, that didn't really last, and after that his form completely disappeared. Then comes the off-field stuff. In 2013, he was banned and fined after admitting to betting on football matches, including games involving Rangers. And by the end of his contract in 2015, fans were literally cheering when he got subbed off, which unfortunately kind of says it all. Dean Shiels. Dean Shiels joined Rangers in the summer of 2012, a move that sparked a bit of drama straight away, with Kilmarnock's chairman accusing Rangers of undermining his old club to get the deal done. Shiels himself claimed he turned down the chance to play in Europe and the Champions League, preferring instead to be part of the Ibrox rebuild. He made an instant impact, scoring on his debut against East Fife and following it up with goals against Elgin City, Motherwell in the League Cup, and even a double in the Scottish Cup tie against Alloa. Injuries, though, were a constant theme. He missed 5 months of his first season with a knee ligament problem, and another long spell on the sidelines came in 2013. Still, when he was fit, he produced some big moments, including a brace against East Fife in 2014, and then just a month later a hat-trick in the Scottish Cup against Dunfermline. Across his 4 seasons at Rangers, he played through all the divisions, winning League 2, League 1, the Championship, and even lifting the Challenge Cup along the way. By the time he left in 2016, Shiels had made over 100 appearances and helped Rangers return to the Premiership. He might not have been the star name of that era, but he was one of the few who actually stuck it out through the whole journey back up. Francesco Sandaza. When Sandaza signed for Rangers, it felt like a great signing. Coming off the back of a fantastic year at St Johnstone, the Spaniard had been playing in the UK for the past 4 years, so he'd fully acclimatised. And he looked like the perfect striker to lead the line at Ibrox as the club started their long climb back from the bottom tier. He actually made a decent start, scoring on his debut in front of nearly 50,000 fans, then grabbing a crucial winner away at Peterhead. But things quickly unravelled. First came injury. He fractured his cheekbone in a League Cup tie against Motherwell after a nasty clash of heads, ruling him out for a few weeks. Then came the controversy. In an interview with a Spanish paper, Sandaza claimed Rangers staff had told him to stop making the Catholic sign of the cross before matches. The club furiously denied it, pointing out plenty of ex-Rangers players had done the same with no issue, but the story stuck, and it didn't exactly endear him with the support. And then came the incident that defined his Rangers career, the infamous prank call. In March 2013, a Celtic fan rang Sandaza pretending to be an agent, offering him a move to the MLS. On the call, Sandaza openly admitted he was only at Rangers for the money and would happily leave if a better offer came along. Within days, the audio was everywhere. Rangers suspended him, launched an investigation, and before long, he'd been sacked. Francesco Sandaza played just 14 games for Rangers, scored 2 goals, and left in disgrace. A bizarre chapter in a career that could have gone so differently. Emilson Cribari. Now, this was one of the strangest signings of the Rangers 2012 rebuild. Emilson Cribari, an experienced Brazilian centre-back who'd played in the Serie A with Lazio, Napoli, and even featured in the Champions League. On paper, this looked like a great deal. And when he arrived, Cribari made sure to say all the right stuff, saying that in his opinion, Rangers were one of the biggest clubs in the world. He made his debut against East Stirlingshire in the 3rd Division and helped Rangers to the title that season. But the truth is, he never really got to grips with the Scottish game. The physicality seemed to completely throw him off, and while his pedigree suggested quality, on the pitch he was a little slow, clumsy, and never came close to being the commanding defender fans hoped for. By the time Rangers were climbing the leagues, he'd been completely phased out. His 2nd season saw him barely feature, and in 2014, his contract expired and he quietly retired from football not long after. For a player who'd faced Real Madrid in the Champions League, it's fair to say his Rangers spell was a massive step down, and ultimately a pretty forgettable chapter in his career. Kevin Kyle. By the time Kevin Kyle signed for Rangers in 2012, he'd spent the last 18 months sidelined with a hip injury, but Ali McCoist and Rangers still decided to take a punt. On paper, it looked like a smart move. A former Scotland international, a massive 6'3" target man, the kind of presence that could bully defenders in the lower leagues. In reality though, he just wasn't the same player. He made his debut the very day he signed, coming off the bench in a League Cup tie against East Fife, and over the next few months, he played 11 times scoring 3 goals, before leaving the club by mutual consent in March 2013. The funny thing is, Kevin Kyle actually comes from a Celtic supporting family. He said his brother was devastated when he told him he joined Rangers, so the fact it didn't really work out probably came as a relief for them. After Rangers, he joined Ayr United for a season, the place where his footballing career started as a kid, before playing one game, a game that would be his final match of his career, for South of Scotland League side Newton Stewart, where he just so happened to score a hat-trick. Sebastien Faure. Sebastien Faure was one of the more exciting Rangers signings in 2012, a French youth international who'd come through the Lyon Academy and even had a trial at Leeds before landing in Ibrox on a 3-year deal. On the pitch though, it never really happened for him. He made his league debut in a League Cup tie against Falkirk, scored his only senior goal away at Berwick Rangers, and was a defender who was capable of playing either right back or centre back. Now, he was a consistent figure in the Rangers team that won League One in 2014, but by the time the Gers got to the Championship, he'd fallen out of favour. But what Sebastien Faure is remembered for the most is a tell-all interview he did with a French news outlet. Frozen out of the team, he went public about life at Ibrox and did not hold back. He claimed Rangers players could eat whatever they wanted, and that there was a buffet before the games where nobody batted an eyelid if you went up for seconds, and that Ian Black in particular was famous for having cups of tea and a slice of cake at half-time. He said French coaches would have lost their minds if they saw that. And then there was Ali McCoist. According to Faure, one day in training, McCoist literally dropped his shorts and let the players fire balls at his bare backside. Faure and Belil Moshney said they were on the floor laughing, calling it legendary. He even spoke about the pressure of Ibrox, stating fans would boo them even if they were winning 2-0, and topped it all off by stating Tynecastle had the best atmosphere in the league. Unsurprisingly, he was released in 2015 after playing a total of 65 games in his 3 seasons with Rangers. Anestis Argyriou. Now, on to one of the more infamous names from Rangers' 2012 rebuild, Anestis Argyriou. He arrived from AEK Athens, which on the face of it sounded like a bit of a deal. A young Greek right-back, 24 years old, experience in Europe, and surely someone who could stroll it in the Scottish 3rd Division. But in reality, he looked a bit like a tourist who'd taken a wrong turn. His debut came in a 1-1 draw against Berwick Rangers, and unfortunately, things never really got much better from there. One of the next things he did was miss a penalty to knock Rangers out of the Challenge Cup. Now going forward, he occasionally showed flashes of attacking intent, but you can't really survive at Ibrox as a right back if you're struggling to defend and attack. Still, he somehow managed 27 appearances, which is actually more than you'd expect given how much he struggled. And in fairness, it was his first time away from Greece, so you could maybe excuse the cultural shock. But when you're playing in front of 50,000 fans who are quick to boo after a few wrong moves, let's just say it wasn't the most forgiving environment to try and find your feet. After leaving Rangers by mutual consent in 2013, Argyriou went on a bit of a footballing journey, spells in Poland, the Greek second and third tiers, and a few smaller clubs along the way, but for him, Ibrox was definitely the biggest stage he ever played on. Francesco Stella. Now, if you don't know who Francesco Stella is, don't worry, I had no idea either. The young Australian midfielder joined Rangers from Italian side AC Siena in the summer of 2012. He scored in a friendly as Rangers beat Falkirk 3-1, made some big claims about hoping to follow in the footsteps of previous Aussies at Ibrox like Craig Moore and Tony Vidmar, and then failed to play a single competitive game for the club before quietly joining Ange Postecoglou's Melbourne Victory side in the January window, where he didn't really get much of an opportunity either.